pretty blurry right now, so hopefully it gets better day by day.
Oh, stop it, James. All the eye rubbing, the squints, the blinking. Put some Visine in it. Buy some goggles and stop all the theatrics, James. I'm not buying it. Harden is hunting sympathy more than championships. That's hurting the Rockets more than officiating or either one of James Harden's eyes. All right, welcome back to Speak for Yourself, the most fearless show in sports. Cuttino Mobley and Eddie House are back. Let's return to the NBA playoffs, where the Rockets must be relieved after tests showed that James Harden suffered no cornea damage from his eye injury in Game 2. Harden and Houston will try to battle their way back into the series in Game 3 on Saturday, but health might not actually be the reigning MVP's biggest issue, with his playoff numbers falling long before Draymond Green poked him in the eye. Over the last 3 years, under Mike D'Antoni, Harden has struggled to replicate his regular season dominance, with his scoring, shooting, and assists all taking a big dip once he reaches the playoffs. Look, I think James Harden, I heard Cowherd say this earlier, and I agree with him. I have a little different point. James Harden and Russell Westbrook play so much harder than everybody else during the regular season that when it comes to the postseason and everybody's playing hard, they take a little dip. And James Harden's a guy, much respect, plays all 82, likes to get his points, likes to get his bucket. But when it comes to playoff basketball, and Kevin Durant talked about this yesterday with Chris Haynes, when people are game planning for you and they have a specific game plan for you over the course of 2 weeks, it's a different brand of basketball. And there are some guys, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, that elevate during the playoffs, and there are other guys that tread water or take a step back, and I think James Harden's one of those guys.
I agree with you. I've always was saying that, like the workload that he carried this year just to get them back into the playoff picture, is it sustainable? That's what I was wondering. And when it comes to the playoffs, yeah, they're game planning for you, but Cuttino, when you're a jump shooter, right? When your jumper is off, it's because your legs went. Yeah. When you don't have any legs, you fatigue, that's the first thing to go is your jump shot. And it's proof right here with his three-point shot in the playoffs. He's over 40% only one time from three. He's been under 30 3 times. I mean, that's unacceptable. That's a direct reflection of fatigue in the legs. That's what goes. And also game planning. So when you have guys game planning for you and you don't have the same energy that you would have in the middle of the season, you're going to see the effects of that in your jump shot. And I think his game is built for the playoffs. I think more so what he has to do is understand where to get his shots, how to get him shots. The regular season is totally different from the playoffs. You gotta constantly adjust, and that's what the playoffs is about, adjustments, game in, game to game, quarter to quarter, and he has to make those adjustments. And right now, I don't see him making those.
Well, you know, I said this a few years back also, and I tried to speak to James about just more so, you know how I play like kind of 15 feet, and then Kobe, myself, we're more post-up guards. And it kind of, what it does is not only does it helps you rest, but it takes the defender's legs away from them, so when it's time for them to play on offense, they're not as efficient. Now, I'm looking here right now, and James shot 40%, 46%, 50%, and 42, 43%. That's not bad, but that's fool's gold, too. I mean, it's kind of like should you be shooting that many threes when you can really dominate more? Now, you know what Utah and the rest of these teams are saying? I'm going to let you get yours. I'm going to make it tough for you, but I'm not letting nobody else eat. In the playoffs, we're not talking about regular season, the playoffs, because from studying tapes to doing all these different things, they're saying, okay, we're going to do the probability. I'm going to let James do this, and we're just going to contest. Or I'm not going to let P.J. Tucker. I'm not going to let Eric Gordon. I'm not going to let Capella. I'm not going to let this guy, that guy beat us. I'm just going to let James do his thing, and he's going to wear out. And during the regular season, they were 14th in the West.
Yeah, he went on that run.
He went on that run. He was back up to 4th place. That takes a lot out of you. So now you're talking about the playoffs where that team gets the key on you for 7 straight games. That's really hard to do.
Does James Harden's play elevate the players around him? I know it leads to wins because he did take them on that run during the regular season, and he has a little system that works, he and D'Antoni, that works for wins. But when it comes down to a 7-game series against top-flight opponents, does it bring out the best in his peers and his teammates? Because, again, it's one thing to stand on the side and watch this dude work in the regular season, but when mom and them's watching and the cousins and everybody's watching, it's the playoffs, your boys are watching, everybody wants to be more a part of it, I think, than James allows.
But you have to do your job. So you know what you were brought there for. You know James is the guy. So if you're supposed to stand in the corner, don't complain now because the regular season you was eating in the corner and wasn't tripping. But now because it's the playoffs, all of a sudden you got to switch and say, hey, I need to get more shots because people know that's not the case. You should just do your job. And over the last 5 years, he's elevated his assists. So he has been getting guys going. That's the reason why I think they've been championship contenders, is because he has got other guys involved. Before, it was just strictly him, and if he was cold, it was all bad for him. Now he has other guys that are involved in the game. I think, actually, D'Antoni can do a better job getting those role players involved early in the game. He's just constantly James and Chris the whole time. You got to get PJ some easy things.
But I don't think, this is the thing, and you make a great point, both of you, but I don't think, see, and Eddie, you can attest to this, if James has an A, a B, a C, and a D. If you cut off A, he gonna do B. He gonna do C, he gonna D. Everybody don't have that. So even if the PJ Tuckers of the world or Clint Capellas of the world, whoever it is, when you cut off their A, they don't have a B. So that's what, in the playoffs, you have to have a B, a C, and a D. Trevor Ariza, Mabute, whatever.
Yeah, Mabute.
Yeah, that was hard for them losing those guys, because even though Trevor's not really an off-the-dribble guy, he still penetrated and did different things. And I think that's what helped them last year. Now, you have guys this year where only thing they do is shoot the ball. They're not really getting to the free throw line. They're not really creating for everybody else. They're just waiting for James to do something, and the other teams are keying in on it.
We talked yesterday, and we got to be quick, but Kendrick Perkins made the point that Houston's getting punked in this series. The intangibles, they're not rebounding well. The Golden State is imposing as well. Golden State's really not playing that well. That's the other thing about...
That's Mike D'Antoni's teams.
That's D'Antoni more than
That's
James Harden.
I played with Mike, and that's the thing. He's going to focus more on offense than defense, and he doesn't like confrontation. So his teams are usually a reflection of your head coaches, and he doesn't like confrontation. I just think the thing with Houston is they're pointing too many fingers right now. They're getting caught up in everything else, and I think they psyched themselves out game 2. I think they were so worried about the referees, and then they found out Scott Foster was going to be the referee on the crew. So they automatically went there like, oh, we about to get the bad end of the stick, the short end of the stick. It's going to be all bad for us.
They manifested that.
And once they thought that, they just left themselves to have any kind of excuse for anything.
Eddie, in the next segment, I want to get into something Coutinho said. Coutinho compared himself to Kobe Bryant. I just want you and I to have a moment to talk about that and see if there's any truth to that. You compared yourself to Kobe Bryant. But we'll get into it to the next segment, Coutinho.
I compare myself to Kobe.
Before we go, I'd like to say a word or two about the woke media's fraudulent concern about being on the right side of history. Coutinho, you got to take a joke. It was this alleged concern that made Colin Kaepernick the absolute darling of the sports media for 3 years. The woke anointed Kaepernick the modern Muhammad Ali and proclaimed history would frown on those of us who recognize Cap's national anthem gimmick as an identity crisis, shakedown scheme, and tantrum. The media do not care about history. We care about clicks and the appearance of moral superiority. If we cared about history's judgment at all, we would be railing against our government for using the FBI to enforce NCAA amateurism rules. Grown men with families are being sentenced to jail as a result of the federal publicity stunt known as the Adidas trial. Christian Dawkins, Merle Code, and James Gatto have already been convicted and sentenced for defrauding universities by funneling money to the families of prominent players. And this week, the sports media clutched its pearls because a wiretap caught Dawkins alleging that Arizona coach Sean Miller paid star center DeAndre Ayton $10,000 a month. Oh, the horror. Sean Miller allegedly shared his wealth with a kid who helped him earn it. You'd think Miller would be a hero. Instead, the right side of history media are calling for Arizona to fire Miller. Yahoo Sports' Pete Thamel asked yesterday, how much longer can Arizona employ Miller? why are we not asking how much longer is our government going to allow college presidents, they're the liberal elites in control of the NCAA system, to run an exploitation system that was analogized to slavery by its modern-day architect, Walter Byers. Here's what Byers, the former president of the NCAA and a white conservative from Kansas, wrote in his 1997 memoir. Today, the NCAA's President's Commission is preoccupied with tightening a few loose bolts in a worn machine, firmly committed to the neo-plantation belief that the enormous proceeds from college games belong to the overseers/administrators and supervisors/coaches. The plantation workers performing in the arena may only receive those benefits authorized by the overseers. The history has been written on amateurism. It's a sham. It was created in the 19th century to shield the elite from competing against people who had to work for a living. It's not an opinion, that's a fact. It takes no courage and accomplishes nothing for the media to defend Colin Kaepernick's right to throw a tantrum during the national anthem. Just push out an I'm with Cap hashtag, throw on a 7 jersey or equality t-shirt, and you fought the power. Standing against an exploitative amateurism system controlled by academic elites who are sitting silently as our government jails objectors requires a bit more substance. The right side of history on amateurism might require you to publicly defend the men and women bold enough to play the players who generate all the cash. More Speak for Yourself after this.
Your eyes don't deceive you. This taco is